I'll divorce a slave who doesn't do housework, huh? Suddenly entering the room, my husband Ethan remarked. He was smirking and looked down on me, sat in a chair for a while. I'm already doing you a favor by putting up with you, useless. Hurry up and get dinner ready. Ethan was livid. To my horror, he even kicked my belly, which was in its 9th month of pregnancy. Caught off guard, I, along with the tablet I was holding, tumbled down from the chair onto the floor. In that falling moment, I tried to protect my belly. The pain from the fall shot through my entire body. Beyond my initial scream, I couldn't utter a word due to the pain, and clutched my belly desperately. Ethan kept kicking me and was like, "Get up and do your job," when suddenly an angry voice yelled at him from somewhere. What awaited such a husband after this incident was my name is Yvonne Dawson, 29 years old, living with Ethan, my husband who's 3 years my senior, though soon we're going to be a family of 3. Actually, a new life is growing inside of me, now in my 9th month of pregnancy with our first child. I often find myself cluelessly reading maternity magazines, somehow making it through the stable period of pregnancy. But that doesn't mean I've been at ease. Every day is a mix of finding out what I shouldn't do and what might be best for the baby at this stage. Morning sickness, which I had only seen on TV dramas, was far more grueling in reality. Alongside realizing the challenges of childbirth, I've also come to appreciate the greatness of motherhood, hoping that my baby would be born safely. I've eagerly awaited the day. However, something started to trouble me. It was about Ethan. When I told him about my pregnancy, he was like, "All right," pumping his fist in the air and cheering. I believed we'd have a happy family life, picturing a bright future full of smiles with Ethan and our soon-to-be-born baby. However, as I grappled with the uncertainties of my first pregnancy, feeling unwell, unable to move as usual, or bedridden due to morning sickness, Ethan began to change. "I'm home! Why the hell are the lights off?" Ethan's voice cut through the darkness. "Sorry, I've had bad anemia since this morning," I replied weakly. "So you haven't done anything again?" "Yes, that's why I tried calling to let you know. Maybe you could grab something to eat or buy something on your way home. I was already on my way." "How am I supposed to get my food now?" Ethan's frustration was palpable. Ethan didn't care at all about my well-being, especially when he was hungry. He clicked his tongue with a look of annoyance and left without a word. When he came back after a while, he brazenly finished a meal just for himself, didn't clean up, and went to sleep after drowning himself in alcohol. After watching Ethan go to his room, I managed to get up and ate whatever I could for the sake of my baby. Sitting in the silent living room, I became sad, and tears welled up in my eyes. The happy family life I had dreamed of until the other day seemed to be crumbling so quickly, and I couldn't process it. I and Ethan, in the vernacular, had a workplace romance. We've worked at a major global corporation called Asher Company, where Ethan was in the marketing department, and I'm an executive assistant, but also handle some of the accounting. One day, while working on the accounts, Ethan noticed me when he brought some documents from his department. From that day on, he started pursuing me relentlessly. It was love at first sight for Ethan. At first, I wasn't interested at all, but his persistent efforts and the way he seemed to lead his team with such vigor drew me to him, and we started dating. Once we started dating, he was a wonderful person who made me dream of a happy family life. I wondered if he would be kind to me again, if I was more diligent about housework and took care of him properly. With that thought, I decided to wake up even earlier than before and move at a relaxed pace. Even if I'm working from home, I've got to work. Stay strong, me. Actually, I chose to work from home not yet on maternity leave. Some of my secretarial duties like scheduling and contacting managers could be done remotely, and more than anything, I wanted to save money for our upcoming baby. So, I kept my spirits high and adjusted my routine to maintain a balance. I would wake up earlier than Ethan, prepare a hearty breakfast. He usually eats at the company cafeteria for lunch, so there was no need to pack a lunchbox. Once I sent Ethan off, I could work at my own pace until he returned in the evening, balancing work and house chores. That's how I spent my days. However, Ethan's attitude towards me didn't change. In fact, it became colder day by day. One weekend, I was feeling unwell from the morning, and even though the alarm rang, I couldn't get up. Unfortunately, I overslept until Ethan's wake-up time. "Hey, wake up. I told you. I've got a golf outing with clients today. You expect me to leave without breakfast?" Oh, right. He had mentioned it. "I'm sorry. I just couldn't." Before I could say anything else, he was like, "You're useless," and kicked the bed hard in frustration. His loud voice and the jolt scared me, and without thinking, I said something I shouldn't have. I usually do it right, but today just happened to be, "What? You're getting defensive now? You're a homemaker. It's a given you should get it right every day." He raised his voice even more and started lashing out at the things around him. Sounds of objects colliding and breaking echoed throughout the room. "I'm so sorry. Please stop it." Terrified, I plugged my ears and apologized. From then on, we barely spoke. When Ethan seemed upset, I kept my distance and would apologize if he said anything. Of course, I hadn't done anything wrong. Could I really give birth feeling this way? I thought about going back to my parents' house for the birth, but there's a chance that seeing the baby might make Ethan come around again, just like when I told him about the pregnancy. He might be happy. I decided to hang on to that faint hope. A little while after Ethan left, I slowly got up and started cleaning up the things he had angrily thrown around and scattered on the floor. Among them was a picture frame containing a photo of us taken back when we were dating. Only the glass surface of the frame was shattered, leaving it pitifully broken. It felt as if it was saying that things could never go back to the way they were, and tears began to stream down my face. Then someone knocked on the front door. Checking the time, it was a bit past 10:30 a.m. Who could it be? Ethan wouldn't knock on the door. Wiping my tears, I went to answer the door. "May I ask who's calling?" A kind and cheerful voice answered. "Yvonne, it's Jessica." Surprised by the unexpected visitor, I quickly opened the door. "Jessica!" I must have looked terrible. On seeing me, Jessica was like, "Oh dear, what happened? You look pale," and reached out with her plump hand to comfort me. Tears streamed down my cheeks again. Jessica is the wife of the CEO of Asher Co., where Ethan and I work. We became close through my grandfather, and since Jessica doesn't have children of her own, she dotes on me as if I were her daughter. Before my pregnancy, I used to visit Jessica and learned flower arranging from her. Back in the day, Jessica used to be a flower arranging instructor, and since I love fresh flowers, she decided to teach me. This might be the first time Jessica visited me. I told Jessica everything that happened since Ethan changed. Seeing the state of the room, Jessica sensed that something was amiss. "Did you talk to someone about this?" "No. I believe it's an issue between the two of us. Maybe I'm the one to blame for not behaving the way Ethan wants. I've never had kids, so I can't pretend to know everything, but I can tell that treating you, who's carrying such a precious life, like that is wrong," she said, standing up for me. She was like, "If he acts like that at home, I bet he's no different at work." It seems she speculated that Ethan's behavior wasn't just because of my pregnancy, but might be rooted in his character. She was also like, "Sounds like a typical case of once you've caught the fish, you no longer feed it, doesn't it?" After listening to my whole story, Jessica cleaned up the mess and made me chicken soup. She originally came to bring me nutritious meals and fruits suitable for pregnant women after researching what would be best for my condition. "If anything happens, call me right away, any time. I'll rush over for you, Yvonne." "Thank you, Jessica." I waved goodbye, looking back several times as she left. I felt relieved having talked to Jessica, and the food she brought gradually restored my strength. Then, on a day off, Ethan, who had been out drinking the night before, didn't wake up at his usual time. I managed to prepare our meals and decided to handle some tasks as I had received a call from my company. I didn't know how much time had passed. I had just finished an important meeting and was chatting with a colleague I hadn't seen in a while. Suddenly, the door burst open without a knock. Startled, I looked over to see Ethan glaring at me with furious eyes. "Who are you talking to while I was trying to rest? You seem to be enjoying yourself. Cheating, huh? Must be nice." He approached me with big steps, saying, "You're pretty useless. I'll divorce a slave who doesn't do housework, huh?" He smirked and looked down at me, who was sitting. He seemed to have misunderstood that I was cheating over the phone. "I was just working." I tried to clear the misunderstanding, but he was like, "Stop lying. I'm already doing you a favor by putting up with you. Now get me some food." In a fit of rage, shockingly, he kicked the leg of the chair. I was sitting on the chair with all his might. Caught off guard, I tumbled to the floor along with the tablet I was holding. I'm gonna fall. The moment I thought that, I protected my belly, but the pain from the fall resonated throughout my body. After my initial scream, Ethan kept kicking my belly, now 9 months pregnant, repeatedly, and was like, "You think you can mock me?" Desperately protecting my belly, I was like, "Stop," squeezing out my thoughts that couldn't be voiced. Suddenly a loud voice rang out towards Ethan. "What the hell are you doing to Yvonne?" The voice was coming from the tablet that had fallen with me. The tablet had propped up against the leg of a table and was showing my situation to someone remotely connected. Ethan, unaware of the situation, stopped his kicking at the sound of that deep, angry voice. The voice was so loud for a phone call. Ethan thought I had dropped a phone, but he was taken aback when he bent down to check. He was met with a fierce gaze from the screen. The pain became unbearable, and I mustered up enough strength to speak. "Please call an ambulance." Feeling pain like I never had before, I felt like I might lose consciousness any moment, but I managed to get those words out. "First a drama, now you're pretending to be ill," Ethan scoffed at my plea, as if it meant nothing. But from the tablet, another voice boomed. "You fool! You think her agonizing cry is her faking it? Call an ambulance now!" "Who's been yelling this whole time? Who are you?" Ethan was ready to berate the person on the screen, but turned pale when he saw who it was. "I'll call the ambulance, Mr. Waller." On the screen were the familiar faces of the CEO from Wall Street Co., Mr. Waller, and an older man unknown to Ethan. "Ethan, I heard everything. How foolish can you be? Do you even consider yourself a human? It's just some rough play, you know, isn't it?" Ethan's pathetic excuse was met with another shout from the older man. "You monster! Who the hell kicks a pregnant woman's belly multiple times, and especially my precious granddaughter, Yvonne?" "Who are you, man?" The one to calm down the furious Ethan was Mr. Waller, the CEO of Wall Street Company. "Ethan, don't you recognize the chairman of our company, Mr. Samuel Asher? And you didn't know that Yvonne is his granddaughter." Those words were hard to believe for Ethan, and for good reason. Ethan had no idea that I, Yvonne, was the granddaughter of the chairman of Asher Company, Samuel Asher. The reason being that my father had chased his dream since his student days and didn't take over my grandfather's business. Moreover, after Samuel became the chairman, he rarely showed his face at the company, so he was somewhat of an enigma. The company name is Asher, so probably Ethan didn't connect my original name, Yvonne Ashfield. However, I wasn't planning on keeping it a secret forever. I wanted Ethan to meet my grandfather, and Ethan had even said he was going to greet him. I was planning to introduce them as a kind of surprise when they met. I bet Ethan never dreamed that they'd meet while he was seen being aggressive towards his wife. Seeing Ethan pale and dumbfounded, Mr. Waller added insult to injury. "We'll have to think about your position in the company. Please wait, Mr. Waller. I really didn't mean any harm. I was just trying to—" As he began to explain, the ambulance that Mr. Waller had called arrived, and around the same time, Jessica, who must have received a call from Mr. Waller, showed up. As the paramedics lifted me onto the stretcher, Ethan tried to grab my hand, but Jessica shoved him away. "Back off! If anything happens to Yvonne or her baby, I'll never forgive you, even if they're both fine." Saying this, Jessica gave Ethan a disbelieving glare. Turning to the tablet displaying Mr. Waller and my grandfather, she was like, "I'll be accompanying her." holding my hand tightly, and boarded the ambulance with me. As I was loaded into the ambulance, my already fading consciousness began to slip away. I could faintly hear Jessica's voice calling out my name. It seemed to fade as my vision turned black. I wondered how long I was out. Feeling a brightness, I opened my eyes. "Where am I?" Murmuring this, I looked around. Then I heard someone was like, "Yvonne, oh thank goodness, I'm so sorry. Yvonne's awake now." That was Jessica, crying out and pressing the nurse's call button. From the other side, I could hear my grandfather Samuel's voice. "Yvonne, thank God the baby's fine too. Grandpa, Jessica." As my hazy mind started to clear, I remembered that I was pregnant and had been violently attacked by my husband, Ethan. My grandfather was like, "The baby? Thank God." Again and again. It relieved me, and I covered my face. Seeing this, my grandfather was like, "You must have been so scared. You did well," and tenderly ruffled my hair. I remembered how Ethan was when we first got married, and I voiced my thoughts. Did I do something wrong? My voice trembled as the words came out. Hearing me, Jessica was like, "Yvonne, it wasn't your fault." My grandfather was like, "Whoever did this to my dear Yvonne will pay for his sin." Both of them defended me. They were like, "You just need to rest now." When I woke up next, I was told I had been asleep for 3 days and nights. After ensuring both the baby and I were okay, I was admitted for a week for observation. Throughout my hospital stay, Ethan never once visited. Thinking about our child who could have been seriously harmed, anger towards Ethan welled up inside me. Jessica, who visited me daily, expressed her concern that going back home might expose me to Ethan's potential rage again. Thanks to her generosity, it was decided that until things with Ethan were settled, I would stay at Mr. Waller's house, who was the CEO of Aita Company. My parents lived far away, and given the unstable circumstances, it was decided against me returning to my hometown for childbirth. Initially, I thought of going to my grandfather's place. However, since my grandmother had passed, and only men were left there, staying with Jessica at Mr. Waller's place in New York seemed better, considering she's a woman and could help out. Plus, it would be more convenient if any action needed to be taken against Ethan. Shortly after I began staying with Jessica, Mr. Waller shared some insights about Ethan's behavior at Aita Company. It turned out on the night I told everything to Jessica, she had requested Mr. Waller to keep an eye on Ethan's behavior. In response, Mr. Waller asked Ethan's direct reports and co-workers to report on his day-to-day activities. "So, Yvonne, it seems you really had no reason to feel guilty," Jessica said. After hearing Mr. Waller's story, both Jessica and I were at a loss for words. Jessica was like, "I knew it." Turns out, since I was rushed to the hospital, Ethan never contacted me. He was under the impression that I had wronged him and ran away. Worse yet, he was spreading rumors at work that I had cheated on him and felt guilty, which was why I left. Moreover, a co-worker from Ethan's batch revealed that he was always an arrogant person, looking down on those he considered beneath him and even treated some of his subordinates very poorly. Back then, I was the most popular female employee in the company, I said. Ethan only pursued me for that reason. He apparently boasted that once we got married, he'd treat me like a slave and exploit me to no end. I had been deceived by Ethan. Realizing this made me feel utterly naive forever, thinking I was lucky to have met someone kind. "He doesn't even feed the fish he caught," Jessica remarked with a look of disgust. "I bet he's up to no good outside of work as well. We should probably look into it." Jessica exchanged glances with Mr. Waller and nodded. She was like, "Wait here," giving me a reassuring pat on the shoulder before heading deeper into the room. She returned in less than 5 minutes, handing me a business card. "This person's willing to really listen to you, so you might want to consult with them." When I looked at the card, I realized it belonged to an attorney. It turned out that my grandfather, knowing this attorney was a top-notch professional, had entrusted it to Jessica to pass on to me. My gear and father were currently occupied with some long-standing international business partners who were visiting him, so he had left me in Jessica's care. The chairman was really concerned about you. He told me he wishes he could be by your side during this time, but he wants you to stay strong and do your best. I see, just like grandfather, I whispered to myself in my heart. Growing up, I'd always seen my grandfather as someone who prioritized work and business associates over family matters. He was very strict in that regard. I was Grandpa's favorite, so I've been watching my grandfather since I was little. Although he always seemed stern in his work and even came off as cold when I was a student, I knew the love he'd shown me when I was little, so I always adored my grandfather. With the encouragement from someone as dear to me as my grandfather, I decided it was time to face Ethan Hedon and figure out the direction of my life. And when I had the attorney look into various things, the revelations just kept coming. It turned out that Ethan was an unbelievable person. Firstly, he had framed me as the unfaithful wife who had run off, but investigations revealed he had relationships with multiple women, including a receptionist at Asher Company. Upon Mr. Waller conducting an internal investigation at Asher Company, suspicions arose that Ethan was embezzling company money trying to pin the blame on me, who also worked in accounting. Soon after, my cell phone rang. Of course, it was Ethan. "What the hell is going on?" he shouted, the anger evident in his voice. I no longer found him intimidating, responding in a calm yet cold manner. "Should I assume you've received the certified mail I sent?" "Why are you talking so formal and distant?" Ethan asked. "Oh, haven't you read it? I can't forgive what you did to my unborn child. At the same time, I truly hope to become strangers with you. That's why I sent that." "What?" "You're the one who cheated and just disappeared on me." Ethan's yelling hurt my ears. "Do you only have a brain to shout? I can hear you without you raising your voice. Satisfied now? Accusing me of something I didn't do while you've been having fun cheating with multiple people." With a hint of sarcasm, I made it clear, I know everything. Ethan was like, "Hang on, how do you know all this?" Getting into a panic, but I continued without hesitation. "You really haven't read it, have you? I had investigated everything. We have more than enough evidence. And also, the mail I sent was about my personal claim for damages. But for your misdeeds at Asher Co., their legal counsel will be in touch. Brace yourself." Upon hearing this, Ethan must have turned pale as a ghost, sweating profusely. In a rush, he started going through the mail I had sent. The rustling sound of papers was evident. And once he realized that even the company matters were known to me, and given the mention of the company's lawyer, he probably felt the weight of the situation and tried to turn things around. "Come on, Yvonne. You don't want to break up with me right now, right? The baby, our baby, needs a father, right? Look, don't be foolish thinking about leaving, and about the company, they think you did it. I'll tell them they got it wrong, okay? Then it'll be like it never happened, right?" Such a selfish and advantageous proposition. Unbelievable reasoning. "I told you what I did, didn't I? I said we have more than enough evidence." "Oh, right. My grandfather was pretty furious too. You might get sued by him as well." "I'm done talking to you. If you have anything to say to me in the future, do it through my lawyer." With that, I hung up the phone. Ethan was like, "Hey, don't hang up." I could hear his desperate voice, but I couldn't care less about that. I never wanted to hear Ethan's voice again, let alone see his face. Given that I was expecting a baby, I decided to leave everything to my lawyer and focus on my preparations. As for what happened to Ethan, investigations at his company revealed inappropriate behavior towards colleagues leading to complaints. Evidence of embezzlement was also found, resulting in his termination and subsequent arrest for theft. Furthermore, while I didn't want any trouble, especially with my baby on the way, my grandfather's anger led to Ethan being reported to the police for assaulting me. He faced further investigation for assault. Financially, multiple compensation claims piled up on him, resulting in a massive lump sum demand. For the time being, Ethan's behind bars, but when he gets out, well, his life's going to be even tougher. You had it coming. I hope he pays for what he's done. Before Ethan was taken in by the police, I managed to finalize our divorce. I then safely gave birth to a healthy baby girl. After discussing with my grandfather and Jessica, we decided to ask the lawyer involved in marriage as a special case that my daughter wouldn't see her father for now. It was a surprise for my parents, but after my delivery, they moved from Nebraska to New York to live with my daughter and me. It was the four of us together. My parents also helped out with raising my daughter, allowing me to go back to work. By the time my daughter started elementary school, I was entrusted with significant responsibilities at work. I succeeded Mr. Waller and became the CEO of Asher Company. Following my grandfather's policy of not allowing the company to become stagnant, the CEO position rotates after a certain age. While working as a secretary and handling the finances, I'd been studying the ins and outs of the business. Had Ethan remained the person I met back then, maybe he'd be the CEO now. But looking at the path he chose, I can't help but pity him. I feel more resolved to be a leader who listens to everyone, ensuring we don't produce employees like him. I'm determined to follow in the footsteps of great men like my grandfather. Speaking of my grandfather, he's now retired as chairman and is completely smitten as a great-grandfather to my daughter. Though I've been through tough times, I feel truly blessed right now.